And we are back once again, only on it's last call of the alcohol, only on the last call podcast.com. And join me here. Well, as I said, a lot of teams are already eliminated. Your favorite NFL teams, but good news, folks. They're already planning the draft. Yes, I know it's early, but we're going to talk some college football and some draft analysis. And well, this week I've been bringing on a lot of people who know what they're talking about. And this man here, well, I would put him up there. Up there as he is on par with everything. He is PFF trained, a business student, and a draft connoisseur. I give you from the NFL Draft Content Scouting. I give you it's Julian of NFL Draft Content. So, Julian, let's start off here with the big question: what happens when you get the perfect college prospect and he plays at a position which nobody cares about? And I'm talking about Caleb Downs. Everybody I talk to say he is the best player of his draft in terms of what you want as a player. But if you're a team, like how high do you draft him? And how tough is it where he's a safety and in the NFL they don't really value it as much as they should?
Yeah, so I think we've seen this a few times actually, and there was a bit of discourse surrounding Malachi Starks last year, but I think Caleb Downs is way better than Malachi Starks was, which may be a crazy take as Malachi Starks was a first round pick, but Caleb Downs is just much more physical. I think he's a way better athlete, and yeah, the question of where can you draft a guy like this at a non premier position, it does come up often, and certain teams will value that the versatility. Cardinals come straight to mind as they've been the ones to take swings on guys like Isaiah Simmons and Zayvon Collins, Darius Robinson, positionless players. But yeah, I mean Caleb Downs, he will finish as a top five player for many people. I assume you and I might have him in that range. And yeah, when it comes to top 10, I think it's a valid take to put him in the top 10 when it comes to drafting. But I don't know if it will happen in April. That's so. What do you think? Where would you put him if the draft were to happen today?
I don't know because I just look and and I know I've talked about this with people. He's not Kyle Hamilton,
Oh no, he's
so
not.
I don't see him as like a corner. So then it's like, okay, I could see him falling to 15 to 25 just because, if I mean, you look, it's like, okay, I need a quarterback. I need an offensive lineman. I need an edge rusher. And those usually are higher premiums than a safety. So it's tough because he should go top five. But if you are the Titans, if you're the Raiders, if you are the Browns, if you're the Dolphins, like how tough is that saying, yeah, we're taking a safety with the number 1 through 5 pick overall, even though we have holes in like every other place.
Yeah, so I fully agree with that. But what I found interesting, just looking at the Caleb Downs recently, is he's been playing more and more in the box. It's his third season, and every season he's played more and more in the box, less and less in the slot, and less deep coverage or like boundary corner or anything like that. So I think they're really playing into his role as like a box safety who can really do it all. But he's 4 inches shorter than Cal Hamilton and about 15 pounds lighter. So I don't know if that really would translate to the NFL because you're playing with different grown men. He's going to be 21 years old going against Lane Johnson on a blitz and bigger tight ends. So yeah, I do agree. I could see him falling pretty late. I'm a big fan of his, but I don't draft a safety to play box linebacker. Kyle Hamilton was a special case. I want my safety to play free roam. I want him to play overhang. I'm not really trying to send him on blitzes unless it's a certain scheme like Brian Flores or something of that type.
What people are going to say, well, you can put some weight on him, make him bigger, make him stronger. Is that possible? Or is that one of those things where the bigger you get, the slower you get because you're carrying more weight?
Well, it's pretty interesting because pretty much I've done that myself for my own football career. When you put on weight, you're not going to get slower, but things do change, right? You're going to be able to control your body weight less and less, and then you have to focus more on, let's say, like a calisthenic sort of football training to be able to get back to that more pull-ups, more agile, because you don't really lose that much speed unless you're putting on like 60 pounds. You can put on, I'm sure you could put on a few pounds to Caleb Downs' frame, but is that something you really want? Because is it worth it taking that safety with great ball skills and great athleticism in the top 10 just to put him at linebacker? I don't think I'm a fan of that, if I'm being honest.
let's say if a nuclear option comes, he falls all the way to the second round. Is that possible? I mean, because we've seen it with Brian Branch, with uh, Andrew Makumba. We saw with Nick Emanowari, who everybody I talked to in the draft process, whether it was Parker Blake, John Volk, like, oh yeah, Nick Emanowari, he is a top 15 guy. And then all of a sudden you start noticing, crap, he went past, pick number 20. Oh crap, he went past pick number 25. And all of a sudden it was, oh crap, he went out of the first round. Is that possible with Caleb just because in this NFL, all of a sudden you're like, yeah, we need a corner, we need a wide receiver, definitely need a quarterback, definitely need a tackle, definitely need a edge rusher. Hey, we really need defensive tackle, and all of a sudden teams, look and go, yeah, we love Caleb Downs, but we need this more than we need a safety.
Yeah, so I fully agree with you. I was a big fan of Emmanuel. Teams, that's why teams take different perspectives on positions, and then they sometimes they'll just ignore the NFL Combine or they'll ignore the All Star circuit. I do think it's possible that he drops outside the top 15, but I think there's going to be a team that just takes him the same way we assume someone would take like Arch Manning on the hype. They wouldn't let him slide to the 7th round after how bad he's played. So I think the team will take a swing on Caleb Downs early enough because he's been hyped up since he was a freshman, and he is a very good player anyway. So it wouldn't be a bad pick, but I could see him falling out of that top 15, even top 20 range. But first round might be a bit of a stretch.
Who would be the best fit for him in terms of you looking at all the teams around that might need a safety that are even in the playoff range? Like if you had to bet, which team do you think will fall in love with Caleb that they'll go, you know what, we'll risk trading up to get him top 15, to get him top maybe 20 to take him? Because they're a team that you're looking at right now that you're going, they're ballsy enough and they recognize their secondary needs help, that they will make this trade to get him, even though it is safety.
Yeah, so the first team that comes to mind and the first fit is the Minnesota Vikings. I mean, they have Brian Flores, and he's a big fan of that safety, that blitzes, that can cover. And right now, they don't really have much of that. They have Harrison Smith, who's, I think, 36 years old. He's probably retiring after this year. So that is the first team that comes to mind. But then question is, does Brian Flores get hired as a head coach in this upcoming cycle? And if that were to happen, I think that whatever team he goes to is a very, very possible answer. So the two teams I'm really looking at right now would be the Dallas Cowboys and the Minnesota Vikings, and they're both playoff range teams. And I think their first pick would be where I can project Caleb Downs safely for this draft.
We're gonna move on because if everybody loves Caleb Downs and they agree he should go higher, but he probably won't. Um, this guy here, it's either you love him or you really hate him. And I'm not talking Caden Proctor. We talked about him later this week, but Armaj Reed Adams. I've heard anywhere from some CBS draft experts say he's going to first round. He's the monster guard that you want. I've heard some scouts say he's nowhere as good. He should be 4th or 5th. Why is everybody so bipolar on him? It's either you really love him or man, you really hate this guy.
Yeah, so I think it's just the play style, especially in that Texas A&M offense. But I think he's having a really decent year, and I think he had a really decent year last year. Struggled with some injuries, and he didn't end up declaring in a pretty weak inside offensive line draft class. But this is another weak offensive line draft class. We lost the best one to an ACL injury in Connor Lew. Vega Ione of Penn State is that number one guy, and then you'll project some tackles like maybe Jennings Dunker and whatnot to guard. But when it comes to pure guard, I think Armaj Reed Adams is definitely a top 150 player, should be undisputably, but I think he's like 300 on the PFF mock draft board, which that doesn't match his skill set, and I don't even think that matches his PFF grade if that's something you like. So yeah, I think he's very good. It might be the play style or the type of offense, but I think he's got decent feet as a run blocker and a good anchor as a pass blocker, and that's something you can work with regardless. And you could definitely take a swing on that early day 3 and late day 2.
You said that this play style for Texas A&M is what throws people off. What for the casual person, the guy who's not huddled into PFF and NFL draft boards, or a hardcore NFL draft nerd, what is it about Texas A&M style that people worry about with Armage?
So I think personally, it's something that changed when they started Marcel Reed, but it's more of a deep boundary, like a sort of a West Coast uh, spread it and throw it deep offense with Marcel Reed. But a lot of it comes down to Marcel Reed gets pressured from his tackles a bit more, and he runs a lot. So when you're seeing your QB run a lot and get pressured against the better teams, you'll assume that the guards might be in on that, or since he's a bit lighter in frame, uh, you might think that he's the reason that they're allowing pressures and whatnot. But he is not allowed to sack this year, and that is very impressive as a guard in an offense where the QB definitely holds the ball a little bit longer because Marcel Reed is young. It's his second year starting. So if your QB is holding the ball longer and you still don't allow a sack, even if he's elusive, that is very impressive. I don't see a reason why you don't think this guy is draftable at all. His tape shows that he's draftable. Obviously, you might want a bit more in the run game, um, but he's got great pass protection skills, and I think he's a grad student. I think it's his fifth season, maybe his sixth season. So he's definitely a veteran enough to where he has NFL potential and NFL mindset, NFL IQ, football IQ, and a very good player. So I would definitely draft him. And I don't know what your grade is, but preliminary grade for me is definitely top 150.
I have him going second, third round. I've even said there's a scenario I could see a guys like Vrabel with the Patriots, Harbaugh with the Ravens go, you know what, we'll take him. He fits what we want. He is a mauler. He has a nasty streak. We need to fix the offensive line. He is the kind of guy that will bully people. We want that. So is that possible where he could all of a sudden get low first round grade love from teams like Lions, Patriots, Ravens, teams that they value, mauler guards who like to run people over. They look at a guy like him and go, we can tweak things. And a guy who they look and go, he fits the culture. He is a mean, nasty guy. We want mean, nasty guys. He is perfect.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we've seen this many times, and the Patriots just took, even though it didn't work out, they just took Leighton Robinson. Um, and they also took that Caden Wallace from Penn State. So they're not scared to take a swing on these guards or tackles that that the public might not even know their name, and they might not respect as much as some other guards and tackles in the class. But I definitely see it's a possibility, and I think that would be a way better pick than Leighton Robinson was or Caden Wallace was at the time, because this guy, as you said, he's got a nasty streak. He's very good in pass protection. He's got this size and experience for the NFL. I'm not scared. I'm not scared if that guy is my right guard. And he's played right guard for 2 years, and he played left guard in 2023. And he has some experience at tackle in high school and in college. I mean, this is a guy you can move around if there's a big issue on your offensive line. So yeah, definitely a valuable player, and it would not be crazy to see him in the top 50.
All right. So this is going to be the most. I'm going to need your help with this because I've been scouting, trying to figure out, what is a tight end in terms of top 50, top 100, top even 20. I'm lost because this is college football. The spread options, sometimes tight ends don't do that well. Sometimes they do. And outside of Kenyon Sadiq, I'm looking around and there's a lot of tight ends who it's like, oh yeah, they will go in top 50. Then you look at their numbers and it's like, wow, it's pedestrian. Um, how tough is it? I mean, outside of Kenyon Sadiq, and even then he's had some games. Like when you're scouting tight ends, how tough is it figuring out how good they are when it's not the NFL? Tight ends in college sometimes get either forgotten or teams just use them as sometimes, oh, just need like a quick first down and that's it. And then they go bombs away to the wide receivers.
Yeah. So what I value personally, right?
Yeah.
Everyone's got their differences. What I value personally out of my tight end is blocking ability, safe hands, and the ability to run routes against the guys you're going to run route against. I don't need you to be a 4-3 runner that is going to cook my corner. I don't need you to be a Calvin Johnson, that tight end. I can be very satisfied with something that can beat a safety in man coverage and box out a linebacker. And we've seen that over the past few years. And it's funny you bring up the spread option and evaluating tight ends, because when I'm looking at Eli Stowers of Vanderbilt, they run a lot of spread option and just option in general. And he's technically having the worst season of his two at Vanderbilt. But I still think he's a top 50 player. I feel like the love for him has just dissipated because Kenyon Sadiq is some athletic phenom. But no, Eli Stowers is very good. He brings height to the table. He brings underrated blocking ability and safe hands, good athlete that is often open in the middle of the field or in the flats. And yeah, I think he's become underrated. I don't hear anything about Eli Stowers, even though Vanderbilt is doing very good.
What's happened to Jack Endries and Max Clare and even Oscar Delp? Because those are three guys I heard beginning of the let's say the college football season. Hey, they're going to be high in the draft. They're going to have breakout years. And you've seen like Endry, 16 catches, 136 yards, 2 touchdowns. Claire, 20 catches, 204 yards, 1 touchdown. Oscar Delp, 10 catches, 138 yards. Like, is it because of them? Is it the quarterbacks? Is it the option? Like, again, with all these guys, and the exception is probably Michael Trigg, who he is playing out of his mind, but he's also probably the best skill player they have in the entire receiving room. Even Brett Norfleet, like how tough is it trying to grade them when the variables are anywhere from quarterback, system, style, option, and you're trying to project how they'll do in an NFL offense?
Yeah, so well, we'll start with, as you said, Jack Endries. I think the biggest mistake for Endries was transferring, because as we saw with Texas last year, they already started using their tight end less and less, a lot more over the middle, deep passes to their wide receivers. Endries sees that, and I'm sure he got a lot of money to go there, but that's unrelated. So he goes to Texas, and now they have Arch Manning, who was struggling through the air. So now they're starting to tap into his legs. They'll run a lot of QB option, QB power, a lot of screen passes. So when it comes to injuries, I think I'm a little bit more scared to draft him now. But luckily he's a junior. He can go back to school. Max Clare is in an offense that also hasn't used the tight end in a little bit, but he's playing better than injuries, and his tape will reflect that. If Max Clare decides to declare, there's going to be a high chance that he's drafted pretty highly based on his tools and his production at his previous school. And someone like Michael Trigg, I'm perfectly able to evaluate him, but he's not that much of a tight end. His inline ability is not what some teams desire, but that big slot option, a little bit of an H back wing player that you can leak out of the backfield, someone like Jonnu Smith, obviously is valuable. So Michael Trigg, I've had him in a first round mock multiple times now, either to the Buccaneers because he's from Tampa, it's a nice little connection, or someone like the Broncos that they have Evan Ingram. It's a similar playing style. But yeah, it's a little bit more difficult to evaluate someone like Oscar Delp when he's just not used in the offense. And they also have Lawson Lucky there, so he's competing for snaps.
And Brett Northfleet, that's the last guy I have on my list. You're like, again, quarterbacks are kind of a mess. They like to run the ball a lot. Like it. So again, when you're scouting and you're trying to break down the tape, and if you're an NFL scout, how tough is it when you're pounding the war table and a GM and the owner like, well, wait a minute, why didn't he blow up? Why didn't he do better? And it's like, and unfortunately, you can't just go, yeah, well, the quarterback sucked because then almost everybody will say that if they have if a wide receiver has a bad year, like, yeah, my quarterback sucked ass and swallowed.
Yeah, so that's, and I think that's where the All-Star games really benefit every player and every coach, because now you might be able to see this guy in a different type of offense, right? They're not running the spread option during the Senior Bowl. They're not running the spread option during the Shrine Bowl. There's lots of one-on-one drills. There's the sled drills at the combine. So this is where you can really get into the meat and potatoes of the player that you're like, I don't see a lot of it on tape, mainly because of the offense, and yeah, maybe because the QB is bad. So I think someone like Norfleet, I think he has enough eligibility to go back to school. But if he decides to come out, they're inviting underclassmen to the Senior Bowl. So if he could secure an invite there, go there, impress in the one-on-ones, impress in the blocking drills, and then play in the game and be like, wow, this guy's open over the middle of the field. He's open in the flats. He's got a good run after the catch ability, and you're able to see more of it just in one game than you did an entire season. Yeah, I think that's beneficial, and I think that's where teams might be able to scout the most of him, and obviously that's why these All-Star games exist, and that's why players go to these All-Star games.
Side note: if let's say you're Max Claire's agent, or you are Jack Endersley's agent, or even Brett Norfleet, are there any programs that a tight end should go to where you're looking at going, all right, this offense will feature you, this offense will incorporate you and use you to your skill? Like, is there any, or is this basically a problem across the board in college football where you have a tight end is still sort of, well, it's nice, but we kind of really don't need you.
Well, it really does depend, because you'll see these guys transfer up in the sort of echelon, going from a lesser conference to the SEC. I think the SEC has the biggest problem because that's where you get your star receivers. But I do think Alabama has a good offense with Kalen DeBoer. I think Caleb DeBoer as a coach has been able to include his tight ends, Jack Westover and Devin Culp when he was at Washington. Oos last year, who even got himself drafted, and he's a fullback, and now they have Cuevas. So I think a situation like that, you could send Max Clare up to Alabama, and he'll be able to use his skill set a lot more. Um, and I think they'll just return to school, because as we're talking about Max Clare and injuries, those are first year guys at their school. But yeah, someone like Oscar Delp, Lawson Lucky, Georgia hasn't used their tight end since Bowers, and they were never really a big tight end school. So I'd send them up to a Kalen DeBoer type of offense where they like blocking tight ends, and then they'll leak you out, give you a ball in the flat, give you a ball over the middle for first down. That's the type of situation I'd like to see a tight end in.
Casey Concepcion, he seems to be the guy I look at, and we he should get more love than what we want to give him. I mean, look at his stats: 36 or 545 yards, 7 touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
And in several of big games that they've needed him, whether it was Notre Dame, 4 catches for 82 yards and going over the middle, taking a hit and just bouncing right back up. The performance against Auburn, where he was big first down catches, 7 for 116. Even Arkansas, 5 for 53, a touchdown. Like, could he sneak into the first round for teams that are looking at wide receiver and you're either scared off by, well, Pac-10, injury history, he's a little bit smaller, or he's not fast enough? Is Casey Concepcion somebody who, come draft season, after going to the combine, after going to the All-Star games, you start going, hey, this guy might be wide receiver 3?
Yeah, well, so just to preface this, what your preliminary ranking on him is? That top three? Is that what you're
Yeah, I have
getting
him
at?
as top 3. The more I see him, the more I love him because he does everything. He can go down. He's incredibly dynamic as a returner. He can make the tough catches and not get alligator arms. He has enough speed to beat cornerbacks and safeties. Like, you look at this, all of a sudden you go, wow, he doesn't get the hype that everybody else does, but he's up there, and you look and go, he's a first round wide receiver.
Yeah, so I definitely agree with you on his type of play. My biggest, it's not even a gripe with it. We could get into his play in a second, but when we're looking at this receiver class, Jordan Tyson comes in as the heavy favorite for wide receiver one. And just today, they ruled out Sam Levitt the rest of the season, which is an opportunity for someone like Casey Conception, because now Jordan Tyson's not going to get that production. It might be a Luther Burden situation where your QB situation's so bad, you're getting 30 yards a game on 9 catches because your QB can't throw it far and you're just running screen and hook patterns. But then you also have guys like Carnell Tate, Makai Lemon, Elijah Surratt, Denzel Boston. So all these guys have obviously their pros and cons. And I think when you look at a guy like Denzel Boston, he's the most complete receiver in the class. And then you look at a guy like Makai Lemon, who's directly battling with Casey Conception. But Casey Conception will be a better boundary receiver prospect at the next level. He reminds me of collegiate Justin Jefferson, which might be a crazy comparison after the way he's played in the NFL. But I wasn't the biggest fan of Justin Jefferson coming out. I thought he was a top 30 player, but his route running ability was sloppy, but you can see the potential. And he fell with obviously the perfect coaches and whatnot in Minnesota. And I can see that with Casey Conception. He's a top 30 player, and the receiver class is so good that if he gets lost in the mix, some team is going to be very lucky, very, very lucky if he falls to the second round, which I don't think is crazy, not because of his ability, but because of how this class stacks up.
So you so give I want your honest opinion. Like when I have him as number three, where do you have him, and why is he, let's say, lower than what I have?
Yeah, so he'd be barely lower. He'd be my wide receiver 6. But as a top 30 player, that doesn't really reflect it because I have Denzel Boston. I might be the biggest Denzel Boston fan. Jordan Tyson, as I said, NFL teams will likely be lower on him because that production is about to dip, and it's already on track to be less than last year. Um, I just think that there's more complete receivers, and that's not on conception. He needs to play a bit more football, even though it is his third year starting. Last year wasn't great. And then there's the transfer issues in the portal. He's going here, but no, now he's going there. I think the way he's playing this year is fantastic, and I would like for him to declare. Um, but if he does not declare for the NFL draft, I understand why, because his competition is heavier than it likely will be next year. Even though you have Jeremiah Smith and Ryan Williams next year, I like him more than Ryan Williams. I think that he's a way more polished route runner. His hands are way more secure, which is why I have him top 30 this year. And I think he can be a wide receiver 1 at the next level within 2 years of his rookie deal.
So here's the question. I mean, as you said, you have him as top 30, and probably some teams will have a second, third round grade on him. Does he declare though? I mean, as you said, if we're basically telling this because we have no stake in the game. We are looking at this objectively, like, all right, yes, you should be patient, wait one more year. Is that likely though, or how much is it likely he looks and goes, well, I'm going to have guaranteed money, and if I go back to college, I have no idea what the hell's going on. Like, just gut feeling. Do you think he declares, or do you think he stays at Texas A&M because he'll look and go, well, the quarterback's coming back, some of the offensive line's coming back, I'll be coming back. Hey, we have a shot to do a lot more, and maybe I can get into the first round next year.
Yeah. So if I were to, which this game is never fun for anyone because I want everyone to declare. It makes the draft season way more fun, way more competitive. I'll say he goes back to school just based on the fact that there's a lot of seniors in this class that have really no choice. And I've heard a lot of fans, like higher up NFL media and whatnot, are fans of someone like Jeremy Bernard, and Chris Bell is having a fantastic season. Obviously, Elijah Surratt going to declare with his QB. So it's one of these that he's better than a few of the guys I just named. But he has the choice to go back to school. With NIL, it changes the game. I think he'll go back to school one more year, ball out again at Texas A&M with Marcel Reed, stay with his QB, and then yeah, he'll declare in 2027 and make himself more money just in general.
Torian York. This is the guy right now you're seeing also on the screen. So I've gotten into debates with people saying he is a top 90 player, maybe could go over the second round. He does everything on paper. You look as a player, I'm just saying player, and he is what you want, sideline to sideline, excellent blitzer, hard nosed tackler, leader. He, as a player, as a player itself, he is just a dynamic linebacker that you can translate to. He is what you want if you were a defensive coordinator. Size wise, that's a different story. He's, depending on who you go, it's either 6 feet tall or 5'11", 230 pounds. Drafting linebackers, it seems like the size matters. Everybody wants now the big 6'4", 6'3", 245 pounds. When you're scouting linebackers, how tough is it trying to project when you have a guy like this who his play is dynamic, but you look and go, man, he's just too short for a lot of our liking.
Yeah, so I think that's obviously we have tons and tons of history of NFL and NFL draft, I think it's an old school mentality to want size at linebacker. If you were to ask any person on the street that's not a big NFL guy or whatnot, they would think an NFL linebacker is supposed to be 6'4", 6'5". Personally, I don't value height. I value size, and I value center of gravity. I value your ability to scrape and shed blocks. Um, but yeah, there will be NFL brass, that old school mentality. Give me a 6'3" linebacker, and I think, yeah, that'll hurt someone like Torian York. But he is a fantastic athlete who racks up tackles, who's good in coverage, and he has the ability to line up in the overhang, kind of like a Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. And lining up in the overhang, it's pretty much a slot corner. You know what I mean? It's pretty much you might be covering a tight end, but you're mainly in zone, covering that hook zone, maybe a flat. And if he has that sideline to sideline ability of any player, you don't need that height. You can be a 2-down linebacker if you're going top 100. If you're going in the first round, yeah, obviously you want that 3-down positional versatility. You can thump it, and you could stack and shed blocks, and you can cover. I think he has that ability. Obviously, the height and the youth might hurt him, and obviously his tape isn't flawless. But I think someone like Torian York, if he chooses to declare, because Texas A&M is a young team, pretty much all underclassmen, um, I think he has the ability to go in the early third round and really impress a team with his ability to stop the run at his size and cover at his weight, which is a pretty hefty weight for the overhang position.
What's your perfect linebacker in terms of size and weight? Because as you said, you don't believe in this old 6'4", 6'5", 245 is what you need of the NFL. That's the old way of thinking. But I'm guessing they're still like this perfect size where they're tall enough they can take on tight ends, so teams don't just throw over them, and they're thick enough where they can shed guards and shed tackles who are coming out in you know to run block, whether it's stunts or whether it's pulls. So for you, for the NFL for Julian, the NFL Draft Central, if you were creating a linebacker, like what are you looking for, and what is your minimum for all right, height, weight, and speed?
Yeah, so I'll give a quick pro comparison here. I think Jordan Brooks is pretty much as close as it comes to size, and it comes with the ability as well. Well, I'm a Dolphins fan. There might be a bit of bias there, but you need a 6'1" linebacker, 230 pounds. And I'll say this: when someone like Jordan Brooks is 6', 240, you can tell he doesn't have the twist and turn and flip your hips in coverage, but his speed alone is sideline to sideline, and he's able to time the snap and burst through and dip under the guard's right shoulder and make a tackle for loss. If you're 6'1", 230, that is the ideal linebacker. And we do have someone that's 6'6" in this draft, Eric Gentry of USC. I don't need that. I don't need someone that's 6'5". 6'1", 230 is perfect. I believe that's even Fred Warner range, who's the best linebacker and then the generational linebacker. So Torian York he's not far off from that. If you call him 5'11", you could call him 5'11". That's 2 inches off, and he's the perfect weight. He's 230. So that's the conversation for that. I would hate to see him fall in the draft because of 2 inches.
So I guess when for him, like you're saying, like in theory, he should stay in school because maybe he'll clean up his tape, maybe he'll look better. Will it fix any of the limitations? Like what weeks I look at as a guy like he could sneak into the early first round. He's that perfect size, 6'2", maybe 6'3", 230 to 240. There's going to be the defensive coordinator going to look and go, oh my God, this guy plays like a linebacker. He looks like a linebacker. Look at the mustache alone. He is what we want a friggin' linebacker. So they'll fall in love with him. And yet with Torian York, there's going to be, as I said, there's still going to be teams going, oh my God, you're short of our positional coach. This isn't good. So how do you fix that if you're Torian York? If you come back, let's say, and you ball out, your senior year, is there anything he can do to fix his tape and get his grade up? Or is it going to be one of those things where there's going to be at least 10 teams, defensive coordinators going to look and go, no, we can't have a little midget running around in our linebacking field.
Yeah, so I think in the ideal world for someone like Torian York, um, a few of blitzing off the edge might help him. That's something that Fred Warner has done and did do a bit in college. You, if you're able to blitz off the edge, or even like I said, Dolphins fan, Jerome Baker did that a lot under Brian Flores. If you can put a linebacker, an inside linebacker, on the edge, and he's able to use his speed to beat the tackle, that is very impressive, and that is what teams value. If you're 5'10", 5'11", 6 foot as a linebacker, you can line up on the edge and get ghost pass rush move past the tackle. They will forget your height because everyone wants the sack. No one really cares about the tackle 5 yards downfield. If you're able to get a sack from any position, corner, slot, safety, D tackle, edge, linebacker, you are valued highly, and you are valued higher than someone that might be taller than you, and they can't do that. They might be too stiff.
All right, our final topic for it to let you go: defensive tackles. I'm sure this is even if you thought it was tough trying to scout, tight ends. Defensive tackle, you're looking at, and it's like you need to watch tape because, again, right now, the top, I'd say, 6 rated defensive tackles: Peter Woods, Amari Washington, Christian Miller, Dominique Orange, Cade McDonald, Dante Corleone. Combined, they have 6 sacks. Caden Curry from Ohio State alone has more than them. So let's start off with what you do, what you look at, because you are an NFL draft, central scout, PFF. You know some people here. What do you look for when you're scouting defensive tackles, and how tough is it to look past the stats numbers?
Yeah, so there's always that conversation of production versus tape and whatnot. Do you split it up? Um, I don't know. Like, I can just bounce off that question right away and ask you how much. Just give a percentage. How much do you value stats at any position?
If it's for some positions, it's usually 60-40 production over, let's say tape over stats. For defensive tackles, I almost have to go even lower because there's so many variables you have to counter. Like, do they
Mhm.
have good edges? Is this what they're being asked to do? Is the system asking them to be this? Are they raw? Like, there's so many things with defensive tackle. Like, you almost have to look and go, we can't look at stats because that's not their job. Maybe to penetrate. Their job is to contain the middle. So, for you, what do you look for? Because for me, I'm a little more easier with defensive tackles because I've understood now. It's the days of maybe the 8 sacks a year for defensive tackles. That's
Yep.
becoming less and less.
Yeah, so I think I actually graded out last class's defensive tackles pretty well. And if we're looking at this class, it's a lot of run stoppers with the size and the athleticism that an NFL team will look at and be like, "Oh yeah, we can turn this guy into a monster." So when I'm looking at it, obviously I'm not perfect, and I think stats that pop off the if I'm going on ESPN and I'm searching up Amori Washington or whoever, and I see 10 sacks as a defensive tackle, I'm obviously going to buzz out and I'm going to look at that tape. And if you're getting a lot of sacks, it's pretty much impossible that your tape is very bad. But when we're looking at this class, it's a lot of bigger guys, a lot of run stoppers, and in college, you run the ball a lot to the edge. You'll do a lot of traps, and you'll double team the big guys. It was impossible to defend Michigan when they had Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant because those guys were so good. You had to double team one of them, and the guy that was on the single blocker was beating the block every time. So when I'm looking at this class, I'm very much you mentioned Caden Curry. That's a versatile piece who's lined up all over the D line, and teams will value that. And he might go higher than someone like Big Orange, Big Citrus, Dominic Orange, and Peter Woods is having a down year compared to last year because he's getting stuck on those single blocks a bit more. And if he's not being double teamed, he's not consistently beating the block. Caleb Banks is injured. Maury Washington might be my favorite defensive tackle in this class because his ability to get low and push upward on the offensive lineman, pretty much driving him backwards straight on his feet. That's what I value from a defensive tackle in the run game and the pass game because you can't go wrong with a forklift. You know what I mean? You can't go wrong with the guy that's moving the lineman regardless of the play.
Let's talk quickly about Dominique Orange. I'm a lot more, I guess, sympathetic to him because you look at Iowa State, they have no edge rushers who consistently, put pressure on the quarterback. Their defense is actually not that good. So when I see him, he's getting a lot double teamed a lot. He is sometimes even getting triple teamed because they look and go, nobody else is going to beat us unless they start blitzing. So screw this, we're going to take him on. And then I think, well, if he goes to the NFL, let's say the Chiefs, he's not going to get double teamed. He's not going to get triple teamed. He will have a Chris Jones and a Carl Loftus in between him or on each side of him, so he could do a lot more. How do you grade that? Look, with him, with Dante Corleone, with even Washington. Washington got his first sack of his entire career, and yet that they're getting more attacked right now in college than they probably will in the pro. So how do you grade that? And how tough is it sometimes if you're a scout trying to explain, look, yeah, I know the numbers aren't there, but they're not what they're seeing right now, they won't see in the pros.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I'll go with right away is I do value stopping the run as the primary component of my defensive tackle because in the NFL, you're often running up the middle. And if you're bouncing that run outside, if you're doing like a stretch run or an outside zone play, if you're able to shed laterally and get on the inside shoulder of the guard that's trying to down block you, that is that you can't get. But that's where you see guys like Chris Jones. We'll ignore the pass rushing of Chris Jones. He's in the run game. He's shedding laterally. He's scraping that guard. He's getting to the spot that he needs to be to disrupt that play. And I see that more from Dominique Orange than I think he's getting credit for. I don't need this insane pass rusher, but his ability to shed laterally and be just a space eater with his low center of gravity, the thick body that he has, that is something I value. And he's going to go higher than the consensus ranking from NFL draft scouts in the media. I think he might go in the first round. I think a team will value that the same way that the Lions valued Tyreek Williams. I had a mid-second round grade on Tyreek Williams, but I knew there was a chance he was a top 35 pick. And lo and behold, he's a first-round pick. Is he having a great year in the NFL? No, but teams don't need to look at that because I think Dominique Orange is a better pass rusher than Tyreek Williams is and more athletic than Tyreek Williams is.
Where does Christian Miller fit in all this? Because he was supposed to have a breakout year, say at the end of last year. A lot of people said he's going to be the next great defensive tackle from Georgia. He has the size, he has the speed and everything. And then after graduation and transfer portal basically robbed Georgia of all his pass rushing stars, including Damon Wilson Jr., he is now ending up being not just the best guy on the line, maybe one of the most senior guys on the line. So how does that, if you're a scout and you're going, the production's pretty bad, like how much do you factor in that this isn't your brother's Georgia? This is no longer the defense that has like 10, first round picks on, the front seven. This is a Georgia defense that is in the middle of sort of a rebuild.
Yeah, so I think Georgia's putting Miller in a decent spot. It's not like they're lining up at nose tackle and saying, listen, hey, buddy, you're in the light 300 pounds. I want you to be that space eating nose tackle that a lot of teams have, like Dominique Orange can play. I think he's being put in the right position. Production's not there. Tape is a bit down, but he still has that ability. You're able to see it. And if the production's not there, and I personally, like I said, I'm a guy that's drafting the run stoppers. So I'm taking Corleone over him. Well, we'll ignore the injury history, but as just a run stopper, I'm taking Corleone. I'm taking Washington. I'm taking Big Citrus. And when it comes to pass rushing, Skylar Gill-Howard, who transferred to Texas Tech, I think he is the what you're talking about when you have elite edge rushers and you're able to get the one-on-one matchup. You have David Bailey and Romello Height on Texas Tech that are just destroying the tackles, play after play. and they're trying to chip and double team. So Skylar Gill-Howard is in these one-on-one situations, straight in the B gap, and I think he's dominating that because he's just more nimble. He's a better pass rusher than someone like Miller. But yeah, Miller's been double teamed a bit more. I don't have the exact numbers, but you could just tell when someone's being double teamed a bit more. As you said, you have no scary edge rushers, and with Georgia, you're trying to bounce it outside. You're trying to go deep on them. You're trying to have quick over the middle passes. So Miller doesn't have as much time to rush the passer.
Final question for let you go. With a lot of these guys, Washington, Orange, especially Corleone, how much do you worry about the weight? These are big guys. They're all, over 6'2", all over 300 plus pounds, some even over 325 plus pounds. Even Cade McDonald, who has 3 sacks, still he's a slimmer. I say that, a little bit wink, wink, at 6'2", 325, but he's also a guy who dropped down from 380. Like when you're factoring all this in, how much do you have to factor? Like, all right, are they going to break down? Are they going to eat themselves out of a league? How much, what is the perfect sort of size for a defensive tackle where it's like, all right, you're big enough, but I'm not worried about you just becoming, Fat Albert or Refrigerator Perry.
Yeah. So, well, that is a good point that you bring up, because we talk about the linebacker, the ideal linebacker and whatnot. I think you need size at defensive tackle rather than linebacker with your athleticism. When a guard is climbing up to the second level, your instincts as a linebacker, your ability to read and react, that matters. But when you're a nose guard, you're a defensive tackle in the B gap, in the 3 tech, you have no time to react. You're going straight, but if it's a run play, the guy's coming straight at you, and if not, it's a pass set where he's just backing up a few steps in his pass set. I want my D tackles at 6'3" at the minimum. There are definitely cases where 6'1", 6'2" works in the NFL. Poona Ford has made a career being 5'11" and a half, if that. So it's not the end of the world, but ideal size 6'3", 330. I don't need my defensive tackle being 300 pounds or lighter, as we see with Darius Robinson on the Cardinals. They thought this guy could be a 3-4 monster, but you're in the NFL now. These tackles and guards that are not rookies, if you're going up against elite guards like Robert Hunt or elite tackles like Lane Johnson, Jordan Mailata, they will maul you. You're not big enough. So Darius Robinson is looking like a first-round bust, while guys like Jordan Phillips that my Dolphins drafted, a premier run stopper in college, he's working it out. He's starting over Kenneth Grant most games. So that's where I'm looking like, yeah, I need size, I need run stopping ability, I need 6'3", 330 with decent athleticism.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, we love having him on the show, and he's bringing some knowledge and dropping some knowledge on all of us here. I give you once again, if you got to check him out, you got to check out all his works because he is just a guy who knows what he's talking about. I give you once again the PFF trained sports business student himself. I give you Julian of NFL Draft Content Scouting. Julian, before we let you go, so where can fans check you out at? Where is the podcast network? Where is the Twitter, the TikTok, Instagram? Where can fans check out your work?
Yeah, so I appreciate you having me on, and started writing on Twitter, on X, excuse me, 9 months ago under the handle draftlives_here. And then I've started TikTok under the same name. That's where I post a little bit more NFL content and actual talking over my breakdowns. I recently broke down QB Jalen Daniels of Kansas, and starting to build up a little bit there. But yeah, my main focus is writing for brands and whatnot on X under the name Draft Lives, one word, _here.
Julian, ladies and gentlemen, once again, of NFL Draft Scouting, always on a pleasure to have you on the show. We come back. We got a lot more going on here, only on it's Last Call. Last Call of the Alcohol, only on the Last Call Podcast.com.